morning, everyone. So I realized I did not film or vlog about the trip back to London from Oxford. That's because I was really tired and I didn't get in until closer to midnight and I just instantly fell asleep. But anyway, I'm back in London now and I'm going to start today off doing a little thrifting. So like I said, instead of going thrifting, we ended up going for a walk in this beautiful cemetery. Now, one thing I love about England is that there's a lot of old things that the city has just built around, so it's common to be walking through London and just come across a really old cemetery or a really old medieval building. And one thing I loved about this cemetery is that they let us go in and walk around and it wasn't completely fenced off. And it was just so beautiful. It really looked like I was in Lord of the Rings, and it was just a very peaceful place. My friends and I have been walking through a lot of cemeteries, and we just honestly love reading the epitaphs. They say things that we don't really see anymore. They say things like, "Here lies all that was mortal of this person," or "He shall rise again," or "We have this hope that we will meet again." Every single one of the epitaphs express some sort of hope and some sort of belief that death is not the end. And in today's secular society, we don't really see that. Whenever we go to modern graveyards, they're really depressing places, even if they're well maintained, because all the tombstones say things like, "Oh my goodness, we'll miss you so much, but it's all over, death is the end," essentially. Overall, the cemetery just expressed such a wonderful, hopeful message, and it was so peaceful. I absolutely loved walking there. Now, the cemetery also had a chapel, and it was absolutely gorgeous. We were not allowed inside, but just walking around it was amazing. It was so beautiful, as was the entire cemetery. Next, we stopped for a quick lunch at this really interesting little cafe place that was in the area where we were going to go thrifting, and then I stopped and got a coffee because I was getting sleepy, and then we headed over to the British Library. Now, this is not your average library. This is a special archival library, so legally every single book that's printed in the UK and pretty much everything that's printed, so we're talking about magazines, newspapers, all of that legally has to be stored at this library, which means that it is enormous, it is extensive. There's over 6 stories of storage beneath the building, and the building was purposefully built to look like a ship. It's just really interesting overall. Now, you're probably wondering how they get the books to readers, and by the way, I should probably say they are not a lending library. That means if you order something, and anyone can do that. They honestly said that if we wanted to read something, we could. We just had to sign up for a reader card. You have to go up to one of the reading rooms, put in a request, and then you wait for the book to be delivered to you, and it's actually delivered to you pretty much the same way that your luggage is delivered to you in an airport. There's all these little systems of conveyor belts that go through the walls of the building. It was so cool. Now, the most unique and striking thing about this library is this tower of books that you see first thing when you walk right in. It is over 6 stories high, and all the books that are housed here actually once belonged to King George. That's the king that was in charge whenever America gained their independence. Now, the funny thing is the tour guide mentioned that, and he said, yeah, we Brits think of him as the Mad King. We think he had this medical condition, and it was just kind of funny to me that he was essentially saying we lost America because we had a loony on the throne at the time. And I just thought that was really funny because that's definitely not the narrative that we get in America. But anyway, he loved books. King George loved books, and he collected all these books, and his son eventually donated them to the British Library, but on 2 conditions, which are still honored to this day. First condition is that they have to be on display, so of course the books are still on display. Secondly, it is a working archive. Anybody who wants can research from these books. The British Library has many rare Bibles, among them this Vellum Gutenberg Bible. There's about 20 of these surviving nowadays, and it's just amazing that I got to see this. They also had this Tyndale Bible. This was the Bible translated by William Tyndale. Now it's so small because Tyndale designed it to be smuggled into England, because at that time it was illegal and actually punishable by death to have this Bible or even really to speak about it. Many of these Bibles that were intercepted were burned, and then later people were burned for owning them. It's a beautiful translation, and this Bible is just really special to me because it reminds me that even whenever you're failing in your eyes, God can still be using you. William Tyndale had this dream to make the plowboy know as much scripture as the learned person, but at the end of his life he was actually captured and executed. His Bibles were being burned, and I'm sure that Tyndale felt like a failure. It's said that as he was being executed, he actually cried out, "God, open the King of England's eyes." What Tyndale never saw was that after his death, the king at that time, Henry VIII, actually ended up breaking with the Catholic Church. Whenever he did that, he commissioned a Bible, and his scholars stole 60% of Tyndale's work for that new Bible. Last but not least, this manuscript is the oldest Bible that's ever been found. It's a complete New Testament. Now, the museum also had this folio of Shakespeare, as well as some really interesting manuscripts, such as Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest, and some sonnets from the Portuguese written by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. They even had some stuff from Sylvia Plath. Now, we were supposed to be able to go see the Magna Carta after this, but apparently it's not on display because two 80-year-old women attacked it last week. I am not kidding, look this up, it was on the news. Overall, I had a fun and amazing day. Can't wait for more adventures.